Two best friends set out to conquer one of North America's most deadly mountains, Denali. What happened to them would remain a chilling mystery for years, until 2014, when searchers made a discovery so haunting it froze the hearts of everyone who heard it. Before we begin, thank you for supporting the channel. Every like, comment, and subscription allows us to bring these gripping, true adventure stories to life. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that chills your soul. This is the story of Ethan Parker and Marcus Hayes, two men whose friendship, ambition, and daring nature would lead them to the highest peak in North America, and into a nightmare they could never escape. Ethan Parker was the eldest of three siblings. Growing up in Anchorage, Alaska, he had always been cautious, meticulous, and observant. From a young age, he excelled at planning, whether organizing fishing trips for his father or mapping hiking routes with his friends. He was a problem solver, a man who preferred preparation over improvisation. Marcus Hayes, in contrast, was the kind of child who climbed trees taller than the houses on his street just for fun. Bold, fearless, and often reckless, he thrived on risk. He had a magnetic energy that drew people toward him, especially those who craved adventure and thrill. They met in their second year at the University of Alaska Anchorage, in a small outdoor recreation club. Marcus had just returned from a solo hike across Denali National Park. Ethan was organizing a group trek for students. Marcus' enthusiasm and audacity fascinated Ethan, while Marcus respected Ethan's meticulous approach. Within months, they became inseparable. Over the next 5 years, they explored every corner of Alaska. They scaled jagged peaks, navigated icy rivers, and documented their journeys through blogs and social media. Friends joked that no challenge was too dangerous for them, but Ethan and Marcus shared a code: ambition tempered with skill, risk balanced with strategy. "We don't just climb mountains," Marcus told Ethan one night, sipping coffee as the aurora danced across the sky. "We chase the impossible." Ethan smiled, uneasy but captivated by Marcus' energy. "Just promise me you won't push too far." Marcus laughed. "The mountain decides, not me." By 2010, Denali, North America's tallest and most formidable peak, became their ultimate goal. 4 years, it loomed in the background of their dreams, beautiful, dangerous, and almost mythical. They had trained for months, testing themselves on smaller peaks and long treks. Yet, both knew Denali would be unlike anything they had faced before. Their families had mixed reactions. Ethan's younger sister, Claire, worried constantly, sending texts pleading him to reconsider. Marcus' older brother, David, tried to remain calm but could not hide his anxiety. Friends admired their courage but whispered privately about the mountain's dangers. Despite the warnings, the men's decision was final. Denali was calling. They would answer. The weeks leading up to the Denali expedition were a mix of excitement, tension, and meticulous preparation. Ethan and Marcus spent hours poring over maps, satellite images, and weather reports, marking every possible route, hazard, and emergency shelter. Ethan created a detailed spreadsheet listing every piece of gear: ice axes, crampons, harnesses, ropes, tents, stoves, and emergency supplies. He double-checked the functionality of their GPS devices, radios, and satellite trackers. Every tent peg, every stove fuel canister, every first aid kit was accounted for. Marcus, by contrast, approached the preparation with his usual flair for improvisation. "All we really need is our boots, ice axes, and guts," he said, tossing a lightweight pack over his shoulder. Ethan shook his head but couldn't help but smile. "Guts won't stop a frostbite infection, Marcus, or prevent you from falling into a crevasse." Despite their different approaches, the two men respected each other's methods. The combination of Marcus' daring instincts and Ethan's careful planning had carried them safely through countless adventures before, and they trusted it would carry them again. Training intensified in the weeks before departure. They climbed smaller peaks in Alaska, sometimes hiking 12 to 15 hours a day with weighted backpacks to simulate the physical strain of Denali. They practiced crevasse rescues on local glaciers, tested their rope skills, and rehearsed survival techniques for extreme cold. Marcus thrived in these simulations, often taking risks just to see how far he could push. Ethan, methodical as ever, monitored their heart rates, calorie intake, and hydration levels, making notes on every mistake and adjustment needed. Evenings were spent in quiet reflection or heated discussion. Marcus loved to dream aloud about reaching the summit first, imagining the adrenaline rush and the sense of invincibility. Ethan countered with cautionary reminders about sudden storms, frostbite, and avalanches. Their debates often lasted hours, ending with laughter, grudging respect, and reaffirmed determination. Family dynamics were equally tense. Ethan's parents worried incessantly, leaving voicemails and emails pleading him to reconsider. His younger sister, Claire, begged him not to take unnecessary risks, pointing out news stories of climbers lost to Denali's brutal environment. Ethan listened patiently but reassured her, "We've trained for this. I'll be careful. Marcus and I both know what we're doing." Marcus' family was quieter, but the anxiety was palpable. His older brother David accompanied him to the gear store multiple times, asking practical questions about weather patterns, avalanche risks, and survival equipment. Marcus always waved him off, confident in his abilities and eager for adventure. But when the men hugged goodbye before departing Anchorage, David's concern was clear in his eyes. The night before departure, Ethan and Marcus sat on a small wooden bench outside their shared apartment, reviewing their route one last time. A gentle wind swept across the city, carrying the scent of pine and the chill of early spring. "You really think we can do it?" Ethan asked quietly. "Of course we can," Marcus replied, eyes glinting with determination. "We've climbed every peak in Alaska worth climbing. This is just the next step." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right, just let's stay smart. No heroics." Marcus laughed. "No promises. Denali doesn't like boring climbers anyway." On departure day, their apartment resembled a military base. Tents, ropes, crampons, stoves, and food supplies were stacked in neat piles. Ethan checked each item twice. Marcus, with his usual nonchalance, simply hoisted his pack and grinned. They debated the inclusion of extra cameras. Marcus insisted on carrying a lightweight drone to capture aerial footage of the glaciers. Ethan worried about battery life and weight distribution. Ultimately, they compromised: 2 cameras and minimal drone equipment, enough to document their journey without slowing them down. Food supplies were calculated down to the calorie. Ethan prepared dehydrated meals for energy, protein bars, and emergency rations for an extra 3 days. Marcus, true to form, argued that hunger builds character, but relented when Ethan pointed out the danger of malnutrition in sub-zero conditions. Denali is notorious for unpredictable weather, even in late spring. Ethan and Marcus studied historical storm data, satellite imagery, and weather patterns, identifying high-risk zones: the Kahiltna Glacier, crevasse fields, and the West Buttress climb. They plotted multiple contingency routes in case of emergencies. Ethan insisted on planning extra supply caches along the way, while Marcus argued for speed, suggesting that moving fast would reduce exposure to the elements. They compromised: a few strategically placed caches, while maintaining a swift pace when conditions allowed. Every detail was logged: estimated travel times, elevation gains, icefall navigation strategies, and emergency evacuation points. Ethan's obsessive preparation contrasted with Marcus' fearless attitude, yet their partnership thrived on this balance. Before leaving, the two men visited their families one final time. Ethan's parents hugged him tightly. Claire cried silently, whispering warnings about the mountain. Marcus' brother David offered a solemn handshake, the tension in his jaw betraying his fear. "Take care of each other," David said quietly. Marcus nodded but didn't respond. The drive to base camp was long and tense. Both men spoke little, focusing instead on the landscape unfolding before them. Snow-capped peaks, jagged ridges, and vast glaciers stretching to the horizon. Denali dominated the skyline, both beautiful and intimidating. "It's bigger than I imagined," Ethan murmured. "Bigger than we imagined," Marcus corrected, smiling. "But we're ready." They arrived at Kahiltna Glacier late in the evening. Base camp was alive with activity. Climbers prepping gear, guides offering advice, and the occasional nervous laugh from someone unsure of the mountain ahead. Ethan meticulously checked their tents, stoves, and supplies once more, while Marcus explored the glacier, testing its snow bridges and assessing potential routes. That night, as the northern lights shimmered overhead, Ethan and Marcus lay in their tents, the weight of anticipation heavy but thrilling. Marcus whispered, "Tomorrow we start the climb. And nothing, not storms, not ice, not crevasses, will stop us." Ethan nodded, pulling his sleeping bag tighter. "Let's just be careful." Outside, the wind howled across the glacier, a subtle reminder that Denali's beauty masked its deadly potential. The sun barely crested the horizon when Ethan and Marcus stepped out of their tents on the first morning at Kahiltna Glacier. The air was sharp and cold, biting at their cheeks and making each breath visible in the thin, frigid atmosphere. They packed their gear meticulously, as Ethan had instructed, checking every rope, harness, and carabiner. Marcus, ever the daredevil, tested his crampons on the icy slope, laughing as he carved arcs across the snow. "Feels like flying," he said. Ethan frowned. "Flying is great until gravity reminds you it exists." Their first goal was to navigate the lower glacier and establish a camp higher up the west buttress. The terrain was deceptive, pristine snow concealing crevasses, ice bridges spanning deep cracks, and hidden slopes that could collapse underfoot. By mid-morning, they encountered their first real challenge. A narrow crevasse yawned before them, its edges overhung with fragile ice. Marcus, impatient, tested a jump across the gap. The snow shifted beneath him, sending a spray of ice shards into the air. Ethan grabbed his arm just in time. "Easy there," Ethan warned, pulling Marcus back. "We test stability, not bravado. One wrong step and we're gone." Marcus laughed, brushing snow off his jacket. "Relax, Parker. You worry too much." Yet even as he joked, a tension settled in the air. Denali was no ordinary mountain. Every ridge, slope, and crevasse seemed to hum with silent menace. The first day of climbing was exhausting. The altitude made every movement laborious. Even the simplest step up a slope required immense energy. Marcus, usually fearless, grunted with effort as he carried his pack heavier than usual. Ethan noticed the fatigue but kept his concern silent. He knew showing worry might undermine Marcus' confidence. They paused mid-afternoon on a small ridge to rest. The glacier stretched endlessly below them, a dazzling field of white punctuated by jagged ice formations. Ethan took out a GPS device, noting their progress and logging potential hazards along the route. Marcus, meanwhile, studied the terrain with sharp eyes, already imagining shortcuts that might save time but increase risk. "This section looks solid," Marcus said, pointing to a slope partially hidden by an icefall. "We could cut through here and gain a few hours." Ethan shook his head. "No shortcuts, Marcus. Not today." Not until we know it's safe. Remember what I said about bridges." Marcus sighed but conceded. They moved cautiously, marking each dangerous zone and using their ropes to secure each step. By nightfall, they reached the first high camp. The tents were pitched on a small plateau of hard-packed snow, the wind gusting like a predator circling its prey. Inside their sleeping bags, the two men reflected on the day. "You think we're ready for this?" Ethan asked quietly. "Ready for what?" Marcus replied. "For Denali itself." Marcus smiled faintly. "Ready as we'll ever be." Outside, the wind whispered across the glacier, an eerie reminder that the mountain didn't welcome intruders. The second day began with a sudden whiteout. Visibility dropped to less than 10 feet. Every ridge, rock, and crevasse became indistinguishable from the snow around it. "Stay close," Ethan instructed, linking their ropes tightly. "One wrong step, and you could fall hundreds of feet." Marcus nodded silently, focusing on each careful step. Their progress slowed dramatically, each movement calculated and precise. The cold seeped into their bones, making even simple movements painful. Fingers and toes went numb despite layers of insulation. They crossed a wide ice field when the wind intensified, hurling snow and ice shards across the glacier. A gust nearly knocked Marcus off balance. Ethan grabbed his arm instinctively, pulling him down to the snow. "That was close," Marcus whispered, his bravado replaced by sudden awareness of the mountain's power. "Close is an understatement," Ethan replied, his voice tight. "Denali isn't messing around." By evening, they had reached a higher ridge, exhausted but alive. Inside the tent, they shared a quiet meal of dehydrated food and hot chocolate. The silence was punctuated by the howling wind outside. "Do you ever get scared?" Marcus asked softly. "Every day," Ethan admitted. "But fear keeps you alive." Marcus nodded, staring at the ceiling of the tent. "I guess that's why we keep going." On the third day, the danger became more apparent. They approached a section of the glacier littered with hidden crevasses. Snow bridges spanned deep cracks, and the ice beneath them groaned ominously. Marcus, as usual, tested the first bridge. It held, but only barely. Ethan's heart raced as he followed, probing with an ice axe with every step. "This is insane," Ethan muttered, almost to himself. "This is the mountain," Marcus replied, grinning despite the tension. "You said you wanted adventure, didn't you?" The glacier seemed alive, shifting beneath them with each step. Small avalanches of snow tumbled down nearby slopes, and the sound of cracking ice echoed through the valley. At one point, Marcus' boot slipped slightly on a thin snow layer. Ethan's hand shot out to steady him. They paused, breathless and shaking. "I hate this," Ethan admitted. "I really do. But we can't turn back now." Marcus laughed nervously. "You love it. Admit it." Ethan didn't respond. The tension was palpable. Both men knew Denali demanded respect, and any mistake could be fatal. That night, camped on a high plateau, they lay in their tents listening to the wind. Silence dominated, broken only by the occasional groan of ice shifting in the darkness. Ethan journaled his thoughts, the exhaustion, the fear, the awe of the glacier stretching endlessly below. Marcus, meanwhile, reviewed their route on the GPS device, already plotting shortcuts he hoped would save energy tomorrow. "Do you ever think about what happens if—" Ethan asked, his voice barely audible. "Don't," Marcus said sharply. "We're not thinking about that. Not tonight." Still, sleep was uneasy. The mountains seemed to seep into their dreams, whispering warnings they could not ignore. Denali's shadow loomed over them, majestic yet merciless. By the fourth day of their climb, Ethan and Marcus had reached the upper west buttress, still several thousand feet from the summit. The air was thinner, colder, and far more unforgiving. Every step demanded concentration. Every miscalculation could be fatal. That morning began with a deceptively calm sky. The sun glinted off the icy slopes, painting the glacier in blinding shades of white and silver. For a brief moment, the mountain seemed almost welcoming. "Perfect day for the summit push," Marcus said, adjusting his goggles. Ethan squinted toward the horizon. Dark clouds were forming rapidly, their edges jagged like shards of glass. "I don't like the look of that," he muttered. Marcus laughed. "We've seen storms before. We can handle it." Ethan nodded, but unease lingered. Denali was known for sudden weather changes. Clear skies could become a blizzard within hours. They began the day's climb carefully, probing the snow bridges and testing the firmness of ice fields. At one point, Marcus' boot broke through a thin layer of snow into a hidden crevasse. He caught himself, adrenaline spiking, and Ethan's quick reflexes saved him from falling. "You okay?" Ethan asked, heart pounding. Yeah, fine," Marcus replied, brushing snow from his jacket, though his hands trembled slightly. They moved on, both aware the glacier was alive with unseen threats. The wind began to intensify, rattling their equipment and howling across the ice. Small avalanches of snow tumbled down slopes nearby, a warning they could not ignore. By early afternoon, the weather shifted dramatically. A whiteout enveloped them. Visibility dropped to less than 10 feet, the world reduced to a swirling blizzard. The ice beneath their crampons became slick, treacherous. Ethan relied heavily on his GPS device to maintain course, while Marcus trusted instinct and prior reconnaissance. Progress slowed to a crawl. Each step required checking ice stability and ensuring rope security. At one point, they reached a narrow ridge with steep drop-offs on either side. Marcus went first, testing the footing, and nearly slipped. Ethan grabbed his arm, steadying him against the wind. "We're pushing our luck," Ethan said, his voice barely audible over the wind. "Luck isn't involved," Marcus replied, teeth chattering. "Skill. Skill keeps us alive." Still, the tension between confidence and fear grew. Every gust of wind, every cracking sound of ice, reminded them that Denali did not forgive mistakes. Around 4:30 p.m., as the blizzard intensified, Marcus pulled out a small camera to record a short message. Their hands were numb, faces red from the cold. "This is probably our last good footage," Marcus said with a forced laugh, shivering. "Denali's, showing us who's boss. Ethan and I are okay for now, but the mountain, it's testing us. Really testing us." Ethan added, "We're moving cautiously. Snow bridges, hidden crevasses, and the wind. All trying to make one mistake easy. Don't worry, we've got this, or we're trying." That footage would become haunting in retrospect. Their smiles were strained, their laughter almost hollow, a mask for the growing fear they could not voice aloud. By 6 p.m., the storm reached full force. Snow whipped horizontally across the glacier, visibility dropped to near zero, and temperatures plummeted. Both men fought fatigue and cold simultaneously, muscles stiffening, minds fogging from altitude and exhaustion. They tried to find shelter for the night on a small plateau, but the snow was unstable. A hidden crevasse swallowed part of Marcus' ice axe as he tested a snow bridge, forcing Ethan to improvise a secure rope anchor. Every step was a gamble. "We have to keep moving," Ethan said. "Shelter won't last in this wind." "Agreed," Marcus replied, voice tense. "But if we don't find stable ground soon, we're risking everything." Their path became almost impossible to follow. Snow-covered footprints in minutes, the landscape shifted beneath them. The glacier, alive and unforgiving, seemed intent on swallowing them whole. At approximately 7:30 p.m., their last known GPS signal was recorded. It showed both men moving slowly, together, yet in a section of the glacier they had not planned. Something, perhaps a sudden snow collapse or gust of wind, had pushed them off route. By nightfall, no trace of Ethan or Marcus remained visible to any potential rescuers. The storm obliterated footprints, camouflaged crevasses, and erased any immediate evidence of their movements. Base camp had been unable to maintain radio contact for hours. The team of climbers and guides below could only watch helplessly, knowing that the mountain was vast and merciless. Family members, waiting anxiously in Anchorage, received messages that evening indicating missed check-ins. Panic began to grow quietly at first, then in waves. Ethan's parents tried calling repeatedly. Marcus' brother David attempted to reach the rangers. "It's too quiet," Ethan's father whispered to his wife. "Something's wrong." The authorities began organizing search and rescue operations, but Denali's storm prevented helicopters from flying. Ground teams faced the treacherous glacier, whiteout conditions, and hidden ice fissures. Every hour that passed diminished the chance of survival. The storm and disappearance heightened the narrative of Denali's merciless nature. Friends and family would later describe the ordeal as a living nightmare, the fear, helplessness, and uncertainty stretching for days, then weeks. Even experienced climbers speculated that survival in that section of the glacier was unlikely. Hidden crevasses, shifting snowfields, and wind gusts over 70 miles per hour made any rescue attempt perilous. For 4 years, the mountain held its secret, leaving the world to imagine the last moments of Ethan and Marcus. The last day illustrated the cruel irony of adventure. The mountain had tested their skills, courage, and preparation to the limit, but nature's unpredictability made even the most meticulous planning insufficient. Their disappearance was not just an accident. It was a stark reminder of Denali's raw, untamed power. The mountain offered beauty, exhilaration, and triumph, but always demanded respect, sometimes claiming even the most prepared adventurers. The morning after Ethan and Marcus disappeared, the severity of the situation became alarmingly clear. Base camp staff attempted to radio the climbers repeatedly, but all communication was dead. The storm had subsided slightly, yet the mountain remained volatile, its icy peaks hiding treacherous secrets beneath pristine snow. Ranger teams immediately mobilized, launching initial search and rescue operations. Helicopters attempted to fly over the glacier, but were grounded by unpredictable winds and low visibility. Ground teams faced the Kahiltna Glacier's hidden crevasses, steep icefalls, and unstable snow bridges. "It's like they vanished into the glacier itself," one ranger noted, frustration evident in his voice. "Every trace disappears within minutes." The search continued for weeks, teams combing the glacier systematically. Footprints were found, then lost. Equipment, scattered partially buried in snow, offered tantalizing clues but no definitive answers. Every crevasse explored seemed to lead only to more snow and ice. Ethan's family refused to accept the possibility that he was gone. His younger sister, Claire, organized private treks, hiring experienced mountaineers to scour the areas where the men were last seen. Each expedition returned empty-handed, the glacier's enormity and Denali's unpredictability leaving little chance for discovery. Marcus' brother, David, organized his own private searches. He tracked every reported sighting, analyzed satellite images, and attempted to predict where the men might have sought shelter during the storm. Months passed with nothing to show for it, only the overwhelming sense that the mountain had swallowed the two friends whole. Friends and fellow climbers contributed theories online and in forums, speculating about avalanches, crevasse falls, and exposure. One climber suggested that the men might have survived temporarily, wandering the glacier in search of shelter, but succumbed to exhaustion and frostbite. Another proposed that shifting ice had concealed their tracks, making recovery nearly impossible. The families and friends endured sleepless nights, haunted by the unknown. Every new expedition, every weather report, every distant rumor of a climber spotted in the wrong location reignited hope and despair. "It's unbearable," Ethan's father said one evening, staring at a wall covered with photos of his son. "We don't know if he's alive, if he's injured, if he even made it through that storm." "We'll keep searching," Claire whispered, her voice shaking. "We have to believe." Marcus' parents experienced similar torment, alternating between hope and grief. The psychological strain was immense, compounded by the fact that Denali held its secrets tightly, indifferent to the suffering of those left behind. Rangers and professional climbers detailed the immense difficulty of navigating Denali. Crevasses often spanned dozens of feet, hidden beneath thin layers of snow. Icefalls shifted constantly, rendering previous maps almost useless. Helicopters could only fly when wind speeds allowed, and even then, visibility remained a limiting factor. Teams conducted systematic sweeps, lowering climbers into fissures, probing with poles, and analyzing snow movement patterns. Every lead, however, ended in frustration. The mountain, vast and merciless, refused to yield its secrets. Journal entries from some rangers captured their despair. "We followed tracks for hours, only for them to vanish. It's as if the mountain swallowed them entirely. This glacier, it's alive. It's hiding something we may never find." The psychological burden was not limited to the families. Climbers and rangers reported nightmares, visions of the men trapped in ice, and a lingering sense of failure. Denali's power extended beyond the physical realm, leaving those searching to battle fear, frustration, and helplessness. Over the years, the disappearance attracted media attention. News reports highlighted Denali's deadly reputation, chronicling how two skilled adventurers vanished without a trace. Local and national coverage alternated between speculation and sympathy, sometimes offering hope, sometimes amplifying despair. Online forums erupted with debates. Some argued that Ethan and Marcus had underestimated the mountain. Others suggested they had been caught in an extraordinary chain of misfortune, sudden storms, hidden crevasses, and the merciless nature of Denali itself. One climber posted a chilling comment: "Denali doesn't forgive mistakes. Even the best preparation can't match its unpredictability." The public fascination grew, fueled by the haunting reality that two friends, both experienced and prepared, could vanish from one of the most monitored and studied mountains in North America. 4 years passed with no definitive answer. Families clung to hope while confronting the daily erosion of patience and faith. Ethan's parents refused to accept his death without proof. Marcus' brother continued his analysis, meticulously reviewing weather patterns, satellite imagery, and survivor accounts from other climbers. During this period, occasional reports of distant sightings, strange ice formations, or remnants of gear reignited hope. Every clue was examined, yet every lead ended in disappointment. The glacier's vastness and Denali's complexity had rendered the mystery almost impenetrable. The psychological weight of uncertainty was crushing. Friends described sleepless nights, haunted dreams, and guilt over past disagreements or unspoken words. The story of Ethan and Marcus became more than a tale of adventure. It was a meditation on human ambition, friendship, and the fragility of life against nature's immense power. Seasoned mountaineers visiting Denali shared warnings and reflections. "You can train, you can prepare, but Denali has a mind of its own," one climber explained. "It decides who survives, not skill or courage alone." The mountain's unpredictability became part of the legend surrounding Ethan and Marcus. Their disappearance served as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the allure of extreme adventure. The years of searching left the families in limbo, a state worse than grief for some. The unresolved mystery created a constant tension, a reminder that even meticulous preparation could not conquer the raw, indifferent force of the Alaskan wilderness. 4 years passed with Ethan and Marcus missing, their disappearance a haunting mystery that refused to fade. Then, in June 2014, a team of climbers making their own ascent of Denali noticed something unusual in a fissure along the Kahiltna Glacier. At first, it appeared to be an odd ice formation, a natural sculpting of snow and ice shaped by wind. But as they approached, the chilling reality became undeniable. Encased in solid ice, a body was suspended upside down, arms outstretched, head tilted backward in a frozen expression of terror. Rescue and forensic teams were immediately dispatched. After careful examination, the body was identified as Marcus Hayes. His face was preserved by the cold, frozen in a moment of panic or struggle. The positioning suggested that he had fallen into or been caught by a crevasse, leaving him trapped vertically in ice. "It's one of the most haunting discoveries I've ever seen," one forensic investigator later commented. His body, it tells a story of sudden catastrophe. You can almost feel the panic, the struggle. It's as if the mountain claimed him in an instant. Climbers who discovered the body described the scene as surreal. The ice around Marcus had preserved him like a grim sculpture, a silent testament to Denali's merciless power. Snow and ice had stabilized his position, leaving him suspended, frozen upside down in the crevasses. Forensic experts pieced together a grim scenario. Marcus had likely been caught by a sudden ice collapse or a shifting snow bridge. The positioning of his body indicated he had been trapped abruptly, possibly dangling or sliding before becoming frozen in place. There was no evidence of trauma beyond what might be expected from a fall into a crevasse. Hypothermia would have set in rapidly, compounded by exhaustion from the storm and the altitude. Ethan's fate, however, remained a mystery. Investigators speculated several possibilities. 1. He had fallen into a separate crevasse and never been found. 2. He survived temporarily, wandering in search of shelter before succumbing to exposure. 3. A sudden avalanche or icefall may have carried him beyond recovery. No trace of Ethan was ever discovered, leaving his family and friends in a state of unresolved grief. The climbers who discovered Marcus were visibly shaken. Even experienced mountaineers admitted that the sight of his body, suspended upside down, was unlike anything they had encountered. The preservation of the body in ice created an almost surreal, cinematic tableau, a grim reminder of Denali's unforgiving nature. Marcus' family traveled to Alaska to see the site, confronting the reality of his final moments. The image of Marcus frozen in ice, reaching outward, left a lasting impression on all who witnessed it. Ethan's family continued their search in private, unwilling to accept his death without proof. The uncertainty left a wound that never fully healed. Friends of both men reflected on their ambition, courage, and the fine line between daring adventure and fatal miscalculation. The discovery underscored the peril of Denali. Marcus' frozen body was not only a personal tragedy but also a stark warning to all who would challenge the mountain. Denali's combination of altitude, shifting ice, unpredictable storms, and hidden crevasses created a lethal environment where even the most experienced climbers could be claimed in an instant. "It's hard to describe the feeling when you see something like that," one guide explained. "You're reminded of how fragile life is, how little control we have in the face of nature. Denali doesn't negotiate, it commands." This discovery gave the world a partial answer, yet deepened the mystery surrounding Ethan. 4 years, speculation continued. Did he survive the storm? Did he fall into a separate crevasse? The mountain kept its final secret, leaving only Marcus' frozen form as a chilling testament to the dangers they faced. The discovery of Marcus' frozen body in 2014 brought partial closure but left a void that could never be filled. Ethan Parker's fate remained unknown, a haunting reminder that not every story has a clear ending. Families, friends, and the climbing community struggled to reconcile the tragedy with the ambition and courage that had defined these two men. Marcus' family erected a small memorial near the base of Denali, a modest tribute to a life full of adventure, bravery, and unbridled energy. Every year, friends and fellow climbers visited, leaving flowers, ice axes, or handwritten notes. They remembered Marcus not just as a climber lost to the mountain, but as a friend, brother, and adventurer whose spirit inspired those around him. Ethan's family continued to honor his memory, holding private ceremonies and contributing to search efforts in Alaska and beyond. The uncertainty of his fate lingered, a reminder that the mountain had claimed him in its own way. Yet, they celebrated his courage, determination, and the friendship he shared with Marcus, the bond that had propelled them toward Denali in the first place. The story of Ethan and Marcus serves as a cautionary tale for mountaineers worldwide. Denali is more than a mountain. It is a living entity of ice, wind, and altitude, testing every climber's limits. Preparation, skill, and courage can take you far, but nature's unpredictability remains the ultimate arbiter. Experienced climbers reflect on the lessons learned, the importance of respecting weather patterns, understanding crevasse dangers, maintaining communication, and accepting that no human skill can conquer every aspect of extreme terrain. Marcus' frozen form and Ethan's unresolved disappearance are stark reminders that even the best-laid plans can be undone by the mountain. For those who knew Ethan and Marcus, Denali will always hold their memory. Their ambition, friendship, and courage inspired countless others to explore mountains, to embrace adventure, and to test their own limits. Yet, their story also embodies the delicate balance between thrill and risk, ambition and respect for nature's overwhelming power. As the sun rises over Denali's icy peaks, the mountain remains indifferent to human ambition. It holds secrets, challenges, and dangers that will continue to claim those who dare approach it unprepared. Ethan and Marcus' story reminds us of the beauty, danger, and mystery that exists at the highest heights. If this story left you captivated, inspired, or chilled, please support the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to stay updated on more gripping, true adventure stories from around the world. Every view helps us honor the memories of adventurers like Ethan and Marcus while sharing their stories with the world.